All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome for the first time. This is TJ, formerly Dahara Master Tej, currently Captain Dunsel, formerly Good Day to Roll Die. I don't know if I'm using that anymore, or this is what I've been calling my captain's vlog. I haven't done anything for a while, but um, if you're seeing this, then it's very close to David's Day, which is June 1st. That's the day that we celebrate David Montgomery, who passed away a few years ago. He was a big part of the Star Trek Attack Wing community, and he was very gracious and kind enough to me to invite me onto his YouTube channel and record a series of videos that we called Rankums, where we just took various cards and topics in Star Trek Attack Wing and ranked them based upon how good we thought the cards were. And I had a lot of fun doing that. Probably the most fun I've had with Attack Wing. And David and I would usually sit down about once a month and record for about 2 or 3 hours and knock out 2 or 3 videos and then just kind of shoot the breeze in between and talk about Star Trek and things like that. One of the last videos we did was a ranking of all the Enterprise ships, and after that recording was done, and David turned off the audio and everything, he let me know that we might have to do a new ranking of this set before too long because he had heard from some of the sources at WizKids that there was a new faction pack coming out that was going to include a whole new set of Enterprise cards, and that's the set that we now know as These Are the Voyages. Unfortunately, David passed away before These Are the Voyages was released and before we had a chance to record that video. And I was reminded that David's Day was coming up, and I felt maybe it was appropriate to honor him by doing that Rankum video that we never got a chance to do a couple of years ago. So here we are, kind of looking back at Attack Wing. It's been a couple years now since These Are the Voyages came out, and I think we've had enough time to play around with those new Enterprise cards, and I feel like it's time to rank them again. So here we are. I have 15 ships ready to go. Now, some of the cards that came out in These Are the Voyages, in fact, all of them, with the exception of one ship, basically is replacing an earlier version of the same ship. So I didn't rank both of those. The abilities were similar enough. I felt like there was no need to do that. So those you won't see here. But otherwise, we have 15 Enterprise cards, and go through them and see how they stack up compared to our previous ranking. I will include the link to the rankum I did with David on this same set, and you can kind of contrast and compare and see how things fall out. Let me know how you feel about the rankings and where maybe you feel some of these cards should have went. Was I totally off base? Was I on the money for some of these? What is your favorite Enterprise card to run? Let me know those things. I would be curious. So with that out of the way, let's get started with number 15. And this will probably be no surprise. There really is no change from the previous video. This is the Enterprise B, the original Enterprise B Excelsior class. Upgrade slots are fine. I think that's a pretty good distribution. Federation does really well with crew. Weapon slots always good. I always feel like you need a tech slot. Stats are fine for the most part. The ability though just is not grabbing me, right? So during the combat phase, you may replace one battle station token, scan, or a blue target lock token that is beside your ship with an invade token. There might be some situations where that works out. You pull a battle station, think you're going to make an attack. By the time you get to the combat phase, you're just not in a position to make that attack. So an evade token might be looking a lot better. But I don't like to plan my builds around the idea that I'm already defeated during the combat phase, right? I think that's just the wrong way to go about it. So just a lot of limited versatility there. The other fact is, one thing I consider with rankings is also how practical it is to obtain this card. If I want to play with this card in person on a real table, can I actually do that? And with this one, the Enterprise B, it's a rare pack. It's probably going to run you about $150 to pick it up right now in the secondary market. And there just isn't anything in the pack that's worth it. Unless you're a completionist and really just want to collect all of the Federation attack wing cards, there's no reason to go out of your way to buy this one. So just not something you're going to see played. These next two I'm going to flip over together because I really feel like they could be interchangeable, and I kind of switched them back and forth while I was kind of working through these rankings. These are both of the Kelvin Enterprises, the Constitution class Kelvins. Both abilities rely upon the use of specialization cards, and this is a very narrow scope of upgrades that are only found in the Kelvin timeline. These are crew cards that had two sides to them, and you could start with one side or the other, and there are some cards like these two shown here that allow you to flip those cards over under specific circumstances. So number one, to use these abilities, you're already restricted to a very narrow scope of cards. Number two, there's too much condition based upon these. The Enterprise ability is an end phase ability. You have to have critical damage associated with your ship, which means you're already kind of in a bad spot by the time you're ready to use this ability. And it doesn't even repair the damage, it just flips the damage card face down, which can be useful, but I don't like the idea of having a ship ability that's going to be only utilized late in the game and has a very minimal effect. Right? You can't really build around this. I want an ability I can use every turn if possible. Now the Enterprise A, I could see you maybe building around this ability. It is an action, and you can repair a destroyed shield by flipping a specialization card over on the ship. And there's ways you can trigger that, right? You can inflict damage to yourself for various reasons and then use this ability. So I can see maybe wanting to do that, and maybe there's something there to make this work. But again, it's pretty limited, and it is just not something that you're going to probably want to spend a bunch of time to work around. The Constitution class Kelvin ship is probably one of the few in the game, maybe the Burrell being the other one I can think off the top of my head, where the generic is just much better than any of the name varieties. So 12 and 11, I'm going to flip these over too, because again, the similar stories on both of these. These are mirror universe versions of the Enterprise D as well as the ISS Enterprise. Enterprise D, this came in the Assimilation Target Prime pack. So I think it's supposed to represent the version of the Enterprise that we see in the episode Parallels, where there's all these different Enterprises that pop up due to a breakdown in space-time or whatever. And this was the Enterprise that was in the universe where it was dominated by the Borg, and they didn't want to go back to that universe. It's got a 5-1, 5-3 stat line, so you're trading a shield for an extra attack dice on the Galaxy class, which I think most people would probably be willing to trade for. The ability allows you to disable another shield to get another attack die, which I think most people, that's a perfectly fine ability that most people would be willing to work with. It even works on secondary weapons, which is great. The downside is, number one, upgrade slots, not good. 3 weapon slots, there's no need to have 3 weapon slots on any ship. At most, maybe 2 if you want to run Type 10 phasers on a Federation ship. And that brings me to the other problem. This is not a Federation ship. It's a mirror universe ship. It's not cross-faction, dual-faction like the Kelvin ships are. I would like to think that maybe if the ship was re-released today, it would be dual-faction. But the issue is this is a Galaxy-class ship. It's a Federation ship. But if you want to run the typical upgrades that you would on a Galaxy class, you're either going to have to pay a penalty for that. So you're paying a bad faction tax, essentially, or you can't because they're faction locked. Type 10 phasers, can't put it on here. Was it Dominion War retrofit? That would be a perfect card to put on here because it gives you that extra hull in addition to an extra shield. Can't put it on here because that's faction locked. So you're going to overpay to build this ship, and I don't think the ability or the extra attack die makes up for that. ISS Enterprise, upgrade slots are better. You get the tech slot. I think it's almost essential to have a tech slot, especially on a Federation ship. So not having one is always, it's always a point against you there. Ability, again, it's fine, but the main thing is it's another mirror ship. It's a little more versatile than the Enterprise D, but you're going to overpay to build this ship if you want to make it equivalent to its typical Federation counterparts. So I think it's still decent. I think I've run it a few times. There's definitely ways to make this work and make it a good ship, but you're limiting yourself a little bit by not having that secondary Federation faction. So that brings us into the top 10. And I think from this point on, all these abilities are really nice, and I would consider using them at any given time. It's just a matter of, as the further we get up, the better and better they become. At number 10, we have another Enterprise D. This is the version that came in yesterday's Enterprise OP pack. Ironically enough, this version is not Mirror Universe or Alternate Universe, even though that Enterprise definitely was an alternate universe. I really like this one. I've talked about this one before in some of my previous rankings with David. Great setup with tech slots, with the overall upgrade slots. I mean, there's a tech slot. There's 2 weapon slots. You can run Type 10 phasers. Cool. 2 crew slots. Cool. The ability, I think, is really versatile because it allows you to swap around tokens and take advantage of combinations of cards or card abilities that you might not want to otherwise because it doesn't give you the tokens you want. Right? I think baseline, I want a battle station token most of the time if I'm running a Federation ship, right? You get some attack quality, you can get some defense quality possibly. So that's usually what I'm looking for. But you have cards like, say, Tea Earl Grey Hot, right? Really nice versatile card, but in order to use it, you have to trade in your battle station, you get a scan and an evade, which is not bad. This ship ability during the roll attack dice step or defense dice step, I can trade in one of those scanner evades that I generated and get my battle station token back and still get the advantage of Tea Earl Grey Hot. On the other hand, let's say your opponent wants to disrupt your actions, so they run Aladar Jarek. He allows, his ability allows your opponent to choose your action for you off your action bar. Well, there's really nothing that Aladar Jarek can pick that will be bad against this ship because you can just convert whatever token he gives you into whatever else you want during that combat phase. Similarly, if you're facing off against Vorik, he's a crew member that when his ship is defending, he can he can get rid of one of your battle station or target locks, and then he generates a scan token. Well, his ability triggers at the start of the attack. So if you start off the attack without having a battle station or target lock, his ability fizzles. And then during the roll attack dice step of the combat phase, which happens next after you declare a target, then you can switch off to that battle station and still get some quality. So there's definitely something there. I think there's a versatility. 2 downsides is it does take work to make this work, right? You're going to have to think ahead and kind of generate a combo and understand how to sequence those cards to make this work to your best advantage. That can be complex. Some people don't want to deal with that. Second thing is this is an Enterprise D, and there are just better Enterprise Ds out there, I think, the ones that are more universal and that have better applications. So for that reason, I think if this was on, this was the USS Venture, for example, I think this ability would see more play than it does. But since it's Enterprise D, if you're looking for a Galaxy class Enterprise D named ship, you're probably looking elsewhere. But I think it's still a lot of fun. Then we have the Enterprise B. This is the only ship from these other voyages, I think, that does not try to replicate its original ability, which I think speaks a lot to the original ability we got at Enterprise B. And this is kind of reminds me, I think of it as like a Timu version of Esri, or the Esri Dax we have at home. Doesn't make it, I don't want to disparage it. I think it's still very useful. That's why it's in the top 10 here. But it does, again, require some work. So whenever you perform the action listed on a Federation crew upgrade equipped to the ship, you place 1 less time token on that upgrade. Now, again, not quite as good as Esri because, number 1, it only can affect Federation crew members, not captains or non-Federation upgrades. Number 2, it has to be an action, which there's a lot of abilities that that crew members accumulate time tokens, but they're not actions, right? So you have to consider that. And I think for that reason, it's not amazing. I think there is one very good use for this ship and this ability, and that is by pairing it with the Captain Kirk card from HMS Bounty. So that Kirk card, not only does it give you a discount on crew, but if you have crew abilities where they take disable tokens to activate the ability, excuse me, to take their action, they get a disability token. You can instead put time tokens, 3 time tokens on that crew. So with Kirk, now you get time tokens, and then with the Enterprise B ability, instead of 3 time tokens, you just take 2. And then if you add Ezri on here, now you're down to just 1 time token. So most crew actions that require you to get a disable token on there are pretty powerful. You think about Crewman Riker, or the new Tuvok from Lost in the Delta Quadrant, or the animated Scotty, or Riley Aldrin Shepard, kind of a deep cut, but his ability is kind of cool because not only do you get an additional maneuver, but you can't be target locked for the route. So it's kind of almost like a pseudo cloaking action for Federation ships. You can do all of those and do them every turn, which is pretty cool. And you can combine them, right? So I think that could be, and I actually have a build, I haven't used it yet, but I have a build that exploits that possibility. So I think that could be really interesting. But outside of that, I think it gets a little bit harder to play with this ability. And again, it requires some amount of setup, which is why it isn't higher on here. But I really love what they're trying to do with it. And I think there is some pretty good upside to it if you're willing to play around with that ability. Number 8, we have the Animated Enterprise. Action, repair up to 3 shields on the ship. I think this is the only ability that gives you up to 3 shields. There are some abilities that give you 1. There are some abilities that will give you up to 2. I think this is the only one that will do 3. Actually, that's not true. Advanced shields will give you up to 3, but that's a one-time use because you have to discard the card. Okay. So this is the only ability I think that you can reuse it multiple times. Great concept for tanking. Probably not the best ship to put it on because it's only got 3 hit points. I think without any sort of modifications to hull or shields here, this ship may not survive long enough for you to repair the shield, especially in a game environment now where you can regularly throw 6 or 7, or maybe even 8 dice at your opponent, right? The other problem is, again, there's no tech slot on here. And yeah, it's a Federation ship. There are definitely ways to convert some of these tech slots, some of these other slots into tech slots, or put on Dominion War retrofit, get an extra slot. That's fine. But you really need at least 1 tech slot so you can put on some extra shields. So you can reinforce the ship if you want to go tanking with it. At the end of the day, from my experience, I don't think having a dedicated tank ship is necessarily the way to go, because at the end of the day, your opponent is always going to probably be able to outpace your ability to repair the damage. And you might be able to get away with this for a turn or 2, but it's probably not going to last very long. So interesting concept, interesting ability, probably one of the, outside of the Prometheus, maybe one of the few ships that can kind of get really tanky. But I think there's some limited usefulness to that as well, just given the current game environment. That brings us to number 7, and I think we're kind of right in the middle of the pack here, and I think this is a very middle of the pack ability. Another Enterprise D, another good upgrade slot allotment. I think that's perfectly fine. You get at least 1 of each, and you get a lot of crew. Federation has lots of great crew to run. The ability is passive. I like passive abilities that I don't have to do anything to trigger them. This is ability that can happen multiple times a turn, which is also great. And it reduces your opponent's ability to attack you. It's almost kind of like a built-in shield adaptation, which is kind of cool. At the same time, it's not crazy good. In fact, it's not even the best ability from this pack. The USS Sutherland has a better version of this ability where it just can straight up cancel a hit or a crit. Right here you're canceling an attack die, but there's no guarantee that attack die was going to cause any damage anyway, right? Without any sort of modification, it's really a 50-50 chance anyway. So You know, you really only like canceling like half a damage with this ability. Yeah, it's fine. I have run this before. I think the nice thing is because it's a very generic ability, it doesn't necessarily lean into any one particular build. You could build this ship in a lot of different ways and still take advantage of the ability. And, you know, so there's a lot of versatility there, which I think is nice as well. Okay, just outside the top 5, we have the Enterprise A. This is the reworked version from These Are the Voyages. So number 1, points to WizKids for reprinting this, because this was one of those very hard to obtain ships. This was a grand prize pack ship. The original version was running for like, I think it still does run for like around $120, $150 on eBay if you go looking right now. So you get a reprint and it's going to be a lot cheaper. Still has the original ability. If you have a scan token beside the ship when attacking, you roll +1 die, +2 if the ship is cloaked. Current game environment, you're going to see a lot of cloaked ships, so probably there's a good chance you're going to be able to maximize that ability. You put on some Type 8 phasers on this ship, and all of a sudden you have a pretty cheap ship that's throwing 5, maybe even 6 dice. And yeah, you got to get a scan token. It's not that hard to generate a scan and get some other action attack quality with a Federation ship, let's be honest. So I think that's perfectly fine trade-off there. This other ability is really interesting, and originally I wanted to put this in the top 5 because of it, but the more I look at it, the more I feel like it's a little bit limited. Okay, so the second ability is during the planning phase, if the captain on the ship has a unique Federation talent, okay, you can discard it and then equip a different talent, unique Federation talent with a cost of 4 or less on the ship, as long as that talent already doesn't exist elsewhere in your fleet. That sounds really cool at first, because you go, well, geez, there are some 1 cost unique elite talents that would qualify here. Caliphate and More Than Meets the Eye would qualify as Federation upgrades. So you go, hey, I'll just put a really cheap upgrade on here, and then I'll max it out to another upgrade. When you look at the available unique Federation upgrades that are 4 or less, there's not a lot of great ones out there. Probably the best one at 4 points is Task Force Commander, which you can use to give all of your Federation ships a free target lock, essentially, but you lose out on the secondary ability because you can't get those additional attack or defense dice because you can't pick a faction after the game has started, right? And that card, you have to pick a faction during setup, and then you can take advantage of that ability by targeting that faction to get extra dice later. You know, if you start this on the start of the planning phase, you've missed the setup phase. You can't take advantage of that. So you're not getting the full value of that card. And then most of the other ones, there's like Flag Officer, there's like some sort of coordination thing. You know, there's just really nothing that really catches your eye. The one thing that I think would work here, and again, this is a very specific use case, but if you start off with To Boldly Go, which is one of the new elite talents from These Are the Voyages, that's a 3-cross talent. And what you do is you put a mission token on To Boldly Go for every other unique card that's on this ship. Okay? So you just load up your ship with a bunch of unique crewmen and a captain and maybe an admiral, whatever you want to do. Right? Now, those tokens that are on To Boldly Go, if you switch it out with another card, they stay on the new elite talent. So what you do is you accumulate a bunch of those tokens at the start of the game, and then during the planning phase, you swap out To Boldly Go for Explore Strange New Worlds. And with Explore Strange New Worlds, its main ability is you can spend mission tokens on there when attacking or defending to add 1 battle station result to your attack or defense roll. I think that's really where the value would lie in this kind of ability. You just get a ton of mission tokens to start, and then you start feeding them right into Explore Strange New Worlds to get some additional firepower, maybe give yourself some defense as needed. But again, if this ability is more expansive, if it wasn't limited to unique elite talents, maybe if we get some more elite talents in the future for Federation, this might start looking a lot better. All right, that brings us into the top 5. And what do we have at number 5? We have the original Enterprise. I think this one fell a little bit from the original rankings. And again, not a knock on this ability. I still really like it. It's just some other cards have gotten better. This is one of the original ships from the game, one of the oldest faction packs, and it holds up really well. You can still take action bar actions even when the ship has auxiliary power tokens, and you can really exploit that and make some cool things happen here, right? So, Captain Janeway from the original Voyager pack, you can double up your action bar tokens with her, but you got to add an aux token. This ship doesn't care. The new Worf card from These Are the Voyages, you can reroll attack and defense blank dice for a additional aux token every time. Great, I'll use that every time because the ship doesn't care. The new Captain Sisko, which allows you to remove, disable, or time tokens from a secondary weapon at the cost of an aux token. Great. All Power to Phasers, which is the animated faction pack that gives a big boost to Constitution class secondary weapon firing modes, requires you to take on an aux token. That sounds good to me too. So a lot of ways you can exploit that and really maximize the ship. And also, if your opponent is going to play Ferengi torpedoes or they're going to run Tribunal or something, this ship doesn't care about any of that. One downside is, again, no tech slot. You can make that happen. It's not that hard, but it would be nice to have a tech slot on there. Yeah. But overall, just a really, really fun ship. I have played it before, and I'll probably play it again. Number 4 here is probably the dark horse. Maybe I'm ranking this too high, but I think this ability has a lot of promise. I don't know if I've seen this card get run yet. This is the new Enterprise refit. This ability is kind of reminiscent of the original Enterprise refit ability, but it just has been kind of supercharged. And before it was an action, now it's just based upon your maneuver. And if the ship reveals a maneuver of 3 or more, you can just put a scan token beside the ship. If you reveal a speed of 2, you get to roll +1 attack die with your primary weapon. If you reveal a speed of 1, you roll +2 attack dice. So, great. Passive ability, doesn't require an action. I guess it's conditional, but it doesn't take a lot to activate it, which is really cool. And to be able to get 2 additional attack dice just for planning your maneuver, I think is really good. Now, again, you're saying, well, I have to limit myself to a 1 attack, to a 1 maneuver if I want to get +2 attack dice. There's a lot of ways to get additional maneuvers in this game these days. I mean, there's Forrest, there's New LaForge, there's Demora Sulu, there's Riley Aldrin Shepard. It's not that hard to generate additional maneuvers to make up for the fact that you're maybe a little bit limited with your primary maneuver. So I don't think that's a big hang up here. And to be able to potentially, put a Type 8 phasers on here and attack with 6 dice without a lot of effort, I think is really, really fantastic. And I think there's a lot of potential with the ship. I think maybe it's been slept on a little bit. I think it could be a really, really good thing to run. And I would be excited to see some people try playing it out in some games. Number 3, the Enterprise NX-01. Not a huge surprise here because this one can be anywhere from just plain annoying to downright frustrating to play against. First of all, it's really cheap, so there's a lot of stuff you can put on here and still have a cheap ship, even if it's very effective. You can put Federation prototype plus a additional construction card on here, which is pretty nice. It gives you a lot of versatility there as well. And then it has this crazy ability where even if the ship has aux tokens on it, you can still perform the actions from captains or any Federation crew equipped to the ship. So kind of like a counter to the TOS Enterprise. Here you can only perform action bar actions. Here it has to be crew and captain actions. But we've all seen where this leads, right? Captain Archer. Activate him. He gets to give you 2 crew actions for free. And then you have you get Reed on there, and then you get Sulu for additional defense dice, and then you get Phlox as a free action to remove all the disabled tokens that generates. And you have Porthos to re-enable Phlox, and then you have like 4 million attacks with phase cannons and all. I mean, we've all seen the builds, and we've just seen how crazy defensive the ship can be, as well as how offensively powerful it can be, even though it doesn't seem to have a very impressive stat line. Now, again, it's a very specific build, and you have to kind of sequence that, and you have to plan it out, so it can be very complex, but it can be very, very effective as well. I think this is like the prime example of showing maybe how WizKids really, I think they play tested this card internally within the These Are the Voyages pack, but didn't consider necessarily the broader scope of all the cards available in the game, because it just becomes overwhelmingly powerful, in my opinion, when you have access to all the resources in this game to throw it together, and you have 50 points to build it up to. It's just really crazy. And it's quickly become a very effective, very powerful card as a result of that. But there are two cards that I still think are better. One of them is the Enterprise D here. This is really the OG of this game. It came out in the original starter set. You can argue this is really the first ship that came out. It did come out with the Kazara and the Mata, right? But this is kind of the original ship. This is the hero ship. This ability has just been reworked slightly to clarify how the attack happens and to make it clear that it is a primary weapon attack. But it's a 360 weapon attack. And you do lose one attack dice off the primary weapon, but you can make up for that really easily, right? Overcharged phasers, Type 10 phasers. You could put Tactical Superiority Commander on here, possibly, to make that work as well. And I think in the current game environment where you have a lot of movement for cards, you have Romulan cloaking device, you have standard sensor echoes, you have ways for ships to get out of your primary firing arc, to have a 360 weapon is really, really useful. And again, much like the previous Enterprise D, this is just a universal ability. You don't have to necessarily build around it specifically to make it work. It's just nice to have. And it's nice to have that option to be able to do that even when your primary weapon arc may not be in the right spot. The other improvement made to the original is they added a tech slot. Originally there were 2 weapon slots and 3 crew. They added the tech. Perfect. I love that. They've made it better. I think this is just a great card. And I've run this one before. I've run the original before. I really like it. And I think there's a lot you can do with it without having to go super crazy into a specific build type. It just works with a lot of stuff. And it's been in the game for so long that it's still very effective. And you can't say that for a lot of ships, especially a lot of the earlier ones. And that brings us to our number 1 ship. Still the number 1. I thought about putting some other ones above it. I still think this is the best, right? The Enterprise E, the one and the only. The ability is when attacking with a torpedo upgrade, you place an aux token beside the ship, and you don't need to have target lock to perform the attack. I mean, how much more simple and effective of an ability can you have? Especially when so many torpedoes need target locks. Right? And that often means you have to figure out the action economy to make that work, because you often can't use the target lock to not only fire the torpedoes, but also use it for die quality, right? So that means you have to figure out where else you're going to get that quality from. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about the ship being cloaked or the ship not being target lockable for some other reason, because you don't need a target lock. It's so versatile. And when you have some of the powerful Federation torpedoes that are now available, that have great built-in attack quality, or the new quantum torpedoes that have some nice built-in quality plus the ability to throw out some aux tokens. This is just a really simple, effective way to hammer at your opponent without them being able to really work around the target lock issue. Okay. And then on top of it, not only did they take that original ability, but then they give us another side to this ship, so you can flip it over during the, is it both during the planning? So this one is during the end phase, you can flip it over. This one is during the planning phase, you can flip over, which is kind of interesting. But this side's more defensive. So during the check for power strain step, after you execute a green maneuver, you can place a evade token beside the ship. You can roll +1 defense dice. So it's kind of nice to see You can flip back and forth between the offensive side and then a little more defensive if you need to. Probably the only other card I can think that's like that is the dual captain Lursa Bator card, where one side you get some extra attack dice, the other one you get extra defense dice. But now I think most of the time, you're probably going to keep it on the torpedo side. That's its bread and butter. That's what it's having for. But they didn't even have to necessarily do that for this card, right? They could have released the card just the way it was. Everyone would have been fine with that because this was just a great card. But they decided to give you another version anyway, if you want to play it a little bit differently. So it's nice to have that versatility built into it, and to be able to that flexibility during the game to build it out. So still a great ship, still the #1 enterprise. So that brings me to the end here. 15 enterprises, 15 rankings. Definitely a few things that I think have been shaken up since the previous ranking I made with David. Some things haven't changed. So let me know. What do you think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Where did I miss the mark? What is #1? And let me know. Have fun. Thanks for watching. Take care out there. Live long and prosper.